Weekdays with Bernie segment tonight. As we have been reporting, the economic position of black Americans in general remains dismal, much worse than for white Americans. The question is why? Was now from Miami, the purveyor, BernardGoldberg.com. Mr. Goldberg. All right, so you saw our reporting, and my take, I don't want to bore everybody and be repetitive, is that it's the collapse of the culture in the black precincts, the family dissolution, the babies born out of wedlock, the lack of emphasis on education, the lack of discipline, fathers abandoning the families. All of that is the primary indicator of poverty, not white privilege, not enough money in the school districts, although, you know, some of those districts do need help. And you say?
I say you're absolutely right. And there are certain factors that lead to poverty regardless of race. The most cogent, easy to understand explanation that I've seen comes from a man named William Galston, who was a policy advisor to President Clinton. He said, if you do three things, and these are three simple things, by the way, you almost certainly will not wind up in poverty. Number one, finish high school. Number two, don't have a baby until you're married. Number three, don't have any babies until you're at least 20 years old. Okay? If you do those three things, you ready for this? Only 8% of people who do those things wind up in poverty. If you do not do those things, just under 80% wind up in poverty. So there's no question that family dissolution is a major factor that leads to poverty regardless of race. The reason it's worse in black America is because there's a disproportionate number of black kids who drop out of high school, and there's a disproportionately high number of African Americans who have babies out of wedlock. About 72% of the black kids born today, are born out of wedlock, and that inevitably leads to disproportionate black poverty.
Now, where can we find, what's the guy's name again? William
Galston. He did this study in 1992.
Is it on the net someplace?
In 2007, it was updated. But it was updated, and the percentages were just like 0.5% off.
Okay, so but is it on the net? Can people see it? Can they access
absolutely.
it?
William Galston, Galston. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good.
And
so I want everybody to check that out. All right. Now, the left refuses to acknowledge this, even though the stats are overwhelming. Right. Why?
I think it's because it's an embarrassment. There have been a number of black elite people, intellectuals, some of them, who have appeared on this program. And they don't give dysfunctional behavior, and I think that's a fair description. If you drop out of high school and you have babies when you're a teenager, it is dysfunctional behavior. They don't give that as a reason because that's embarrassing. They blame racism. Now, maybe once upon a time when there were less opportunities for black people, racism might have been a legitimate reason. It isn't today. And Bill, they're not doing black people any favors by pretending it is racism. And by the way, what's happened in black America is happening in greater numbers than ever before in white America.
You know, it's an underclass situation. But the irony is that in the 1950s, early 60s, when blacks were being actively oppressed in many parts of the country, the pregnancy rate and the out-of-wedlock rate and the dropout rate wasn't as bad as it is now. Okay?
I have numbers on that. Let me give it to you very, very quickly. In 1969, right after the war on poverty began, and these are the earliest numbers they have, just under 35% of black kids were born out of wedlock. That's high, just under 35%. Today, it's 72%.
Right, double.
Just under 72%. Now, with white Americans, this is also troubling. In 1969, 5.5% of white kids were born out of wedlock. 5.5%. Today, it's almost 30%. That's a six-fold increase. The problems we've seen in black America are coming to white America, and poverty will follow these numbers.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Poverty is colorblind. And if you do if you make mistakes in your life and you dig yourself a hole where you're not educated and you've got to be on the dole to support your kids and you're dependent and all of that, and you can't develop a career or a talent, you're done. All right, Bernie. Very instructive. Thank you very much. When we